My name is Amelia Atkins. I'm the National Manager of Marketing and Sales Development for the SG Fleet Group. And I'll be your host today as we chat with industry leaders from Audi, Mitsubishi, Volvo and SG Fleet. First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So for the next hour, we'll be discussing the latest from each of our panellists, development in the EV space, and what's on the horizon for each of our brands and the industry in general. We have a fantastic lineup of guests today. So let's get started with introductions. If you could each tell us your name and a little bit about your role. Owen, we'll go to you first.
Hi, my name is Owen O'Brien. I'm the head of sales for Audi Australia. I've been working with Audi for about 14 years and I look after all of our national sales operations all over Australia. And so I'm looking forward to working with you and discussing today some of our new innovations and technologies coming for the Audi brand.
Beautiful. Fulvio.
Hi there, Fulvio Fattore, Deputy Director, Mitsubishi Motors Australia Limited, in charge of fleet and mobility. I have the sincere pleasure of working with several of our large customers, small business and government customers, and novated leasing client base. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you.
No problem. And Paul.
Yeah, hello. Paul Moffat. I'm the Corporate Sales Manager at Volvo Car Australia. I've been with the brand for 8 years now, worn many hats over the time. Happy to be joining you today to discuss some of the key trends in the industry.
Beautiful. And last but not least, Wayne.
Thanks, Millie. Wayne Exol, Head of Sales for ANZ at SG Fleet. I look after the business development teams that focus on tool of trade vehicles as well as novated leasing, heavy commercial vehicles across Australia and New Zealand.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for joining us here today. So grateful to have you join us and see where the conversation takes us. For those watching, we are using your registration questions that you have submitted to help guide our conversation. However, if you have any further questions, pop them in the Q&A, up anyone else's that you may like. So then that way, if we have time at the end, we can try and get them covered for you and cover the most popular topics. So, to kick things off, let's talk about market trends. So we've seen a significant shift towards electrification, particularly in the novated leasing space, and the added benefits that the electric discount bill enables for our novated leasing customers. Owen and Paul, from Audi and Volvo's perspective, what are the current trends you're observing in the market? Do you think the demand for EVs is still as strong as ever? And maybe, Owen, if you want to kick it off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amelia. Yes. From an Audi perspective, it's no different. We see the EV demand growing substantially for Audi in particular in the last 12 months. Because we've introduced two key models, which now are very appealing for a novated lease customer. That would be the Q4 e-tron and the Q6 e-tron. So
yes.
The Q6 e-tron has just been launched, and we're about to launch another variant of that car, which will definitely be very appealing for novated lease customers. And so, from a market perspective, thanks to the government incentives for purchasing electric vehicles, we can really see a huge opportunity in that space. And I think our customers see the opportunity as well, because they can adapt that technology into their lifestyle without compromising any more on range or any of that anxiety about technology. And so there's fantastic options available for a potential EV customer. And so, yes, it's an exciting time for Audi, and we're really looking forward to what's coming for our brand as well, which I can discuss again.
Yeah, beautiful. And you mentioned that Q6 being appealing for novated leasing customers, and that's because it'll fall under the LCT
that's right.
ideally.
Yeah, that's the bit of news I have for today.
Yeah. I've cut to there.
I'm pleased to say that now we have the Q6 e-tron. If you've done any of your own research into the vehicle, you can see that the car is a fantastic technological leader.
Yes.
And it's a brand new model in its segment, and we're really excited for that car and the potential it has in Australia. And you can order that car now today for delivery next month. And it will be available under the LCT or the fringe benefit tax threshold. So it's a huge opportunity for any customer. So I'd encourage you to think about that and what you could do with such a fantastic product.
Yeah, beautiful. Such a luxury car available, and under this scheme, making it such a great opportunity for anyone considering.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And Paul, from your perspective as well, and from Volvo, is the EV market as strong as ever in Volvo's lens?
Yeah, well, look, you'd certainly hope so, because
Yes.
we're going to be fully electric by 2030 as a brand. So
Okay.
we're looking for that trend to continue. Look, I think what we've seen is that a lot of the barriers to sale of EV have sort of dissipated over the last couple of years. So we launched our first electric car, which was the XC40 in 2021. And at that point, consumers would come into the showroom and there would be concerns around range anxiety and concerns around infrastructure and so on and so forth. But I mean, Owen, I'd share your sentiment as well. We don't really see that as much these days. Consumers are coming into our showrooms, they're already educated. For the most part, they've already driven an EV, either through rental or overseas or borrowed a friend's car. So I think those initial barriers to a sale that we saw have sort of, they've dissipated as we've seen EVs go more mainstream. So yeah, absolutely continuing that trend. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. And Fulvio, seeing as Mitsubishi's lineup of vehicles at the moment aren't heavily EV, how do you see hybrid and internal combustion engine vehicles fitting into the transition towards a greener future?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. From our perspective, we sell around 70,000 cars per year, and we do so because we've got a really good match in terms of both private and fleet buyers in terms of what they're after for the day. So very heavy on light commercial vehicle for a certain application. You're either towing extreme 3.5 tonne, you're carrying over 1 tonne, and similar on the SUV side. And the ICEs really fit that bill extremely well, I guess, over the past years. It's Australia's second best selling SUV, mid-SUV, certainly to large fleet. And from that perspective, there's a couple of reasons for it. Mitsubishi was one of the, first OEMs to release a EV several years ago, 15 years ago, and the market simply wasn't there. And we learned from that. So we've introduced plug-in hybrid EV type technology as that middle ground to educating consumers that may have that range anxiety that we've just heard of. And that's actually proven extremely successful for us. We've also introduced technologies on the light commercial vehicles, such as Triton with our Euro 6B engine that decreases emissions. So we're enhancing our total emissions perspective to get to that greener future. But it's important to note that we'll also be introducing BEVs. And at the same time, maintaining that plug-in hybrid EV technology. So the saying that the greener future is not a sprint, it's a marathon, could not be truer.
Yes.
In reality, our market, I think, peaked at circa 9% EV sales. And to put that into perspective, we're talking 9 in 100 vehicles, and is probably back to 6 in 100 vehicles. So there's no doubt that as the market continues to evolve, Mitsubishi will be on hand with a range of different technologies to lean into both private and fleet demands. So in the meantime, we continue to make our vehicles more efficient and enhance overall total emissions.
Yeah, nice. And I think as well, infrastructure probably comes into play with a little bit too. I suppose each of your brands can, bring out new models, and as you say, it can't be overnight, but yeah, I mean, do you see infrastructure potentially catching up to where it needs to be, or is it potentially where it needs to be in your opinions?
From our point of view, speaking for Audi, we partner with some fantastic businesses such as JetCharge and ChargeFox when it comes to charging partnerships. We have an opportunity for Audi customers who purchase a new EV to have a period of complimentary charging available, just to get used. If for new customers to the EV space, they can get used to that by having that a little bit of comfort that you have some complimentary charging available. That's available on every Audi EV at the moment, and it's a good introduction and a bit of a safety net if you are concerned about that. From an infrastructure point of view, every major city has multiple outlets. 150 kilowatt chargers are what charges your car within 20 minutes, up to 80% normally in most cases. And so with technology like that available at most major cities and in numerous locations, you have got a new level of convenience that you wouldn't have had 3 or 4 years ago. So it's, from an infrastructure point of view, we're quite happy to see how it's going. And I guess one comment really is, on EVs, the petrol station's also in your home, and that's really another thing as well. So if you have the ability to charge at home, then you obviously can plug the vehicle in. It doesn't need to be a very, very high speed charger, because the chances are you'll plug the vehicle in as you check out for the night, go into your house, and the following morning you'll have a fully charged vehicle ready to go. So that's something really, from an infrastructure point of view, is something to consider as well. If you have the ability to charge at home, then there's multiple options available there in terms of home charging.
Nice. Yeah, and I don't know if it's whether we work in the industry but it is one of those things that once you do become exposed and you see a charging station, you start to see them, more frequently than you had before. And I think it's, maybe those that might be, petrol drivers, until you start to sort of see and need the charging ports, that you go, oh, hang on, shopping centres, all the different locations. So
an interesting comment, though. We do find that a large percentage of people that are driving EVs are charging at home, to your point, and around 78 to 80% in some of the I guess the case studies that we've done on a number of our own customers within our own fleet. We've got 230,000 vehicles on the road. A number of those are driving EVs, they're driving hybrid vehicles, they're driving plug-in hybrid vehicles. So we're able to actually get some really good insights as to what the charging usage is for the EV drivers across the board. 10 to 15% sort of work charging, and then the balance public charges. And I think the interesting thing around public charging stations is there's around 2,500 chargers, I believe, in Australia today, public chargers. And I think Deloitte recently did a recent article around where they think it needs to be by 2033, especially with the increasing demand on low emission vehicles and all electric vehicles. And they believe it needs to be around that 25,000 mark. So there is still a big gap to fill in between where the public charging network is today to where it needs to be, based on the growing demand. But I think, to the point that most of the charging is done at home, and you don't need a rapid charger. You can charge it overnight. It charges in a matter of hours, obviously, over the period of time, and by the time you get up and go to work next day, it's fully charged.
And another comment as well on that. Personally, I drive an EV, and I don't have the option to charge at home. However, that's not an inconvenience to my lifestyle. So I use my vehicle for commuting to work, and I use my vehicle for weekend trips and whatnot. I charge it basically once a week at a public charger near my workplace. It's not an inconvenience. So even if you don't have the option to charge at home, it shouldn't be a showstopper in terms of EV adoption. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of how it suits your lifestyle. And exactly. Yeah. No.
I think they're really important points you both make, and Wayne, we see the same sort of trend. It's got to fit with your lifestyle. You're either charging at work, or you're charging at home, or you're charging somewhere that's extremely convenient. And I think that's been one of the core fundamentals for plug-in hybrid. It's based on both technology and infrastructure that exists today. You can effectively plug it into a standard wall socket overnight, and you've got that ability, or it's using its braking as regenerative charging. And I think from that perspective, the infrastructure that exists today, I think you're right, 2,800 units. But when you think about our footprint across metro and just how sparse we are compared to a country like Norway that has that 25,000 chargers and is considerably smaller, I think that presents some fundamental challenges for the Australian landscape. And it might suit us now at 6%, but if we fast forward and we think about a market at 15 and 25%, to your point, I think we're going to need considerable more infrastructure to accommodate the demands for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wayne, you touched a little bit there on a couple of trends that we're seeing at the SG Fleet Group. Anything further, I suppose, from a novated customer perspective that we're seeing with customers and inquiries and trends in our business?
Well, I think you just got to have a look at our order book today when it comes to novated leasing, and 60% of our order book is predominantly low emission vehicles, and a large percentage of that is electric vehicles. And also whether it be plug-in hybrid vehicles or even hybrid vehicles. But there seems to be a bit more of a push of late towards electric vehicles, which is interesting. And there's a lot more options becoming available in the country with rollout of new brands and new manufacturers, many that we haven't necessarily heard of. But they obviously in a high cost of living environment, they are appealing to certain individuals that are looking at taking up a novated lease. But I think the key point there is to have that educated discussion with what's fit for purpose. And it talks about lifestyle, as you mentioned earlier, Fulvio. It really comes down, an EV is not necessarily fit for purpose for everyone. So it really depends on their lifestyle, what they're using the vehicle for. But certainly the range of vehicles that are becoming available in the market here is certainly a rapidly evolving environment right now.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful. And if we keep on that EV trend, my next line of questions, so many of our customers are curious about the latest advancements in battery technology. This question, love to hear from everyone. How are each of your brands ensuring EVs continue to become more affordable, faster to charge? If Audi want to...
Yeah, with our latest model, which is the Q6 e-tron, it's available with up to 260 kilowatts of charging, which means you can charge from basically a flat battery to 80% within 20 minutes. And that's obviously industry-leading charging speeds. And as the technology and the infrastructure comes to meet that ability for the car to charge at that speed, that then we can obviously see more customers reduce that compromise on EVs. And so what will happen is a charge. It will no longer take, it won't be a matter of hours anymore, and it'll be a quick charge, 80 minutes. And in some of our vehicles, what that means is that you have up to 400 to 500 kilometers of range with a 20-minute charge. And so that's a fantastic advancement that we're very proud of. Also, as technology improves, we're seeing the EV battery ranges improve. This doesn't happen, obviously, this doesn't take place every few years. This obviously takes place over a longer period of time. With the range in our vehicles at the moment, it's somewhere between 500 and 600 kilometers, which is on par with an ICE vehicle. That a lot of ICE vehicles will do about that much on a full tank, and we're starting to see that with EVs. So again, that compromise, that range anxiety should no longer be factors when it comes to adopting EVs.
Yeah, absolutely. Fulvio?
Yeah, I think the range anxiety has really been fundamental to our thinking over the years. And as a plug-in hybrid EV, you certainly don't have that level of range anxiety. You can achieve 85 up to 85 kilometres of pure EV driving, depending on your lifestyle. That might be zero emissions all the time, depending on what you're using your vehicle for. Alternatively, if you're charging 2 or 3 times a week in our vehicle, you could expect to be achieving well over the 50% of pure EV. Then over and above that, you've got, as I mentioned earlier, the regenerative braking, so that even where your battery is dropping to zero, you'd generally be viewing your dashboard and seeing the battery charge increase from 0 to 2, 2 to 4, and so on and so forth. So from our perspective, we're introducing new models. You can achieve up to 850 odd kilometres on an Outlander plug-in hybrid EV on a combined technology basis. And as indicated earlier, you can expect some exciting new developments where we are introducing new pure BEV type technology, but you'll have that plug-in hybrid EV to complement and I guess avoid any potential range anxiety for those that are out there. And I think, to your question on pricing and charging, yes, you can charge an Outlander plug-in hybrid EV on a fast charger. We also work to a CHAdeMO protocol, which is code for, it's one of what we believe a competitive point of difference is. You can effectively exercise bi-directional charging and put power back into the grid, as it were. And of course, that's not available in every state, but it does lend itself to vehicle-to-grid type technology. And I think as you start and see more market adoption, whether it's EV, plug-in EVs, etc., you'll naturally start to see those economies of scale kick in, and you would expect pricing to adjust. But as I say earlier, if you're looking at the global footprint, it is still, there's no doubt that the trend's there. It's still relatively low when you think about 1 million vehicles, in Australia, for example, and you're talking 6% of those. So you'd expect to see that increase, and as it increases, you'd expect to see pricing reflective of those economies. Yeah,
nice. And you mentioned, select states. For those that don't know, what states are they in Australia?
So key states probably, South Australia. If I give you an example and focus on South Australia, within our own head office, for example, we tend to focus on more of an ecosystem. So we have solar panels on the ceiling, we have vehicle chargers within the car park, and we're effectively running software inside the building. So at any point in time, we're collecting power from the solar panels. We're using that power. That's charging the vehicles. It's also being used to charge the building, as it were. And the reality is you've got an entire ecosystem where, in theory, you could potentially be off grid. So there are states that are playing catch up with that, but generally we're seeing some really good momentum, across each of the states. We're not just completely aligned in that structure at the moment.
Nice, beautiful. Paul, anything sort of further from Volvo in terms of, that affordability and faster charging?
Yeah, look, I mean, just adding on to what Owen said, the faster charging, it really comes down to the speed of the charger and the kilowatt. So we're, as a brand Volvo, we're always looking for ways to improve battery efficiency for longer range. We've got a sedan, the ES90, coming into the country, hopefully Q4, maybe Q1 next year, depending on production. And that's got a range of 700 on a battery electric vehicle, 700 kilometres. So it's, as you say, that's sort of getting back into that same space as a combustion engine. But yeah, the speed of the charging really comes down to the kilowatt charge. We can take up to 350 kilowatt charge on some of our vehicles, around the 260 with some of the others as well. But of course, a 350 kilowatt charger isn't on every corner. So
No.
it comes down to the charging. But the other thing, as we were talking about before, I think it's a mindset shift in terms of how you use your vehicle. I was speaking to a gentleman outside before, and coming from a combustion engine, you typically drain your car right down to zero in terms of your fuel, your petrol. I drive a plug-in hybrid vehicle because I do higher kilometres, but my wife drives an EV and she would never go below 90%. She just drives to work and then comes home in the evening, plugs it in, and it never goes below 90%. So it's about how you use your vehicle instead of just draining it down to zero and then waiting for that sort of 6 to 8 hour charge.
Yeah, I'm waiting for your petrol tank to say you're close to empty and you've got to make it to the next station. Nice. I suppose, Wayne, anything from SG Fleet's front in terms of how we're working with customers in terms of the education piece?
Yeah. Look, we've undertaken a number of trials. You mentioned Forvio earlier around the vehicle to grid. We've worked with a state government where we've actually trialled that program, and we're able, obviously, to identify what works and what doesn't work as part of that process. But certainly there's a number of trials that we are undertaking, whether it be the vehicle grid. We're also looking at charge as a service as well, where we're looking at charging, installing chargers at residential homes for novated lease employees on a subscription type basis, which is a little bit different in the market. So effectively, with this particular trial we're doing at the moment, there's a fee per month that we'll be charging for that subscription to be able to charge their car and have the chargers installed at home. If that employee was to leave the organisation for any reason, we can arrange that charge to be uninstalled and transitioned across to the new employee that will commence with that organisation. So there's different programs and different trials that we're looking at. It's still a very evolving market as well when it comes to the charging infrastructure. We have a range of options available when it comes to public charging, work charging, where we're using RFID cards and we're able to track it from a reporting perspective, the kilowatts that are used, and other areas such as what people can claim when they charge at home, how they claim that. You can either claim at home or you can either claim using public networks. You can't do both, so it's one or the other.
Yes.
So again, it really depends on individual circumstances, where they're charging, how they're charging, and how often they're charging.
And just making sure it accommodates to how they choose to charge.
Yes.
Beautiful. Back to you, Paul, on the topic of hydrogen. So this one keeps coming up in the media, also with our customers.
Yep.
From Volvo's perspective, and I'm angling this at yourself just due to potentially, Volvo's R&D in the past. Do you see hydrogen-powered vehicles as a viable alternative to EVs? And if not, what other advancements might we expect?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question. I think as an industry, we've been talking about alternate power sources for years. I mean, you've got LPG, CNG, ethanol, diesel. There's always been conversations about different types of power sources, and hydrogen will continue to be a conversation for a while. I think, the conversation about hydrogen is a very small percentage of the market, right? And it's only been discussed by a very small percentage of manufacturers. But they do face the same challenges that EVs do in terms of cost of production and infrastructure,
Yes.
as we're seeing overseas. I think really what happens is that consumers become curious about different types of power sources, but end up reverting back to mainstream just because of, it's easier and the infrastructure's there. So I think EV will continue to dominate, but it's an interesting conversation with the hydrogen.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Yeah, and I mean, EV, you've got that PowerPoint at home, you've got your own source versus hydrogen, and sort of how that expands out to become adopted consumer-wide, obviously is a piece of work that needs to happen at a wider degree.
It's probably something that's more discussed on the corporate side when it comes to commercial transport and so on. That's where it's probably playing a more bigger role in regards to the potential. But again, it comes down to the infrastructure requirements. And again, if you're looking at EV charging at home, we don't have hydrogen refueling stations at home, but we can charge off a PowerPoint if we really want to.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And Wayne, you touched on it a little bit before, but anything further you can expand on in terms of how SG Fleet are ensuring the adoption of EVs continues and what our plans are to help customers?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the key part from our perspective is all around understanding what the options are available in the marketplace. Being able to have an informed discussion with each individual driver when they're inquiring about an EV, understanding what their individual circumstances are, presenting some options to them around potential charging requirements that they might want to consider as part of the novated lease as well. Whilst it's not financed in the novated lease arrangement, it's something that we can help coordinate and help have the discussion and inform the driver around what the options are. So it's that education piece is key. And within SG Fleet, we've got quite a large team of consultants, and we really focus on that education piece to make sure that they're equipped with the information, knowing what charging infrastructure is available, but also at the same time, what vehicles are available and what applies under the luxury car tax and the FBT exemptions. We've obviously seen the removal of the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles on the FBT exemptions recently on the 1st of April. But I'm still seeing that there's a bit of interest in them, especially with a number of new entrants into the market as well. And you've spoken about some of the options through Mitsubishi as well. So it will be interesting to see how those trends continue over a period of time. But certainly there is a lot of focus at the moment on hybrid and EVs.
Absolutely. And I suppose why hybrids are still an economical choice despite, the legislation ending, but still a great option to save with a novated lease, but take up the benefit of the EV. Yeah. Beautiful. Shifting gears to technology and the driving experience, even the most affordable cars come packed with features these days. This is another one to everyone. How is technology enhancing the driving experience, and what are each of your brands doing in the technology space to evolve? And maybe Fulvio, kick it off.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, the automotives have an acronym, I guess, CASE now, for a number of years in terms of how connected we are, autonomous, shared, and electrification. And from our perspective, when people think about connected vehicles, they almost have this, or rather autonomous vehicles, they almost have this view of Waymo in the States, where vehicles are roaming around all of the suburbs without any drivers, without realising the level of safety that each of the manufacturers is actually bringing to the table. So when you think about current ANCAP 5 standards, the level of advanced driver assistance that's in there is phenomenal. You're thinking about utes with rear cross traffic alert, driver monitoring systems. So certainly our new generation Triton has a driver monitoring system. And when you think about base levels, we're not reserving that sort of safety technology for top spec. We're reserving that really from the ground up, because that's the foundation of, I guess, day-to-day fleets. It'd be great to have day-to-day fleets roaming around in Triton GSRs, but as Wayne knows, not economically possible for most fleets. So technology is really taking a number of shapes, but when you think about the level of safety equipment that's going in there in terms of everything from literally braking, airbags, rear cross traffic alert, frontal collision, lane departure warnings. There are too many acronyms to actually name, but when you think about the current ANCAP standards, I think most individuals miss that you've got over 20 key safety features that are going into part of autonomous. So whilst they're not driverless, they're at circa stage 3 of what we'd call, driverless type, vehicles, and it's because of all that advanced driver safety that kicks in. And then, of course, you've got the traction control that's just continued to evolve. And when you think about all-wheel drive and 4x4 stability controls, never been better on these vehicles. And as I say, whether you're looking at Mitsubishi or certainly any one of our competitors, the bar just continues to be raised.
Yeah, beautiful. Paul, I think you've also got, from Volvo's perspective, some exciting tech advancements, either in market as well and also coming, if you can share a bit on that.
It's so competitive in that tech space now. A lot of the new entrants that you were discussing, especially coming out of the China market, they're very tech savvy.
Yes.
I think continuing on from what you've said, Fulvio, Volvo's always been about safety since we first began. So when we look at tech, apart from things like creature comforts like a heated steering wheel for you people down here in Melbourne, and heated seats and massaging seats, I think it's that safety piece.
Yes.
All of our new vehicles now are coming into the country, and they've got these, we call them driver awareness packages, but things like capacitive steering wheels that are understanding where the driver has his hands on the steering wheel, cameras coming onto the eyes of the driver and knowing when the driver is getting fatigue. So the latest tech that's coming through, apart from just nice shiny things, is really around that safety piece for us and making sure that our drivers are in the best place, and if they start to get exhausted, the car will actually tell them to take a break.
Yeah, nice. And did I hear any, you mentioned the AI features that are also potentially...
Yeah, so I mean, that we did talk about that earlier on. I think it might be quite frightening for some people. But we've partnered last month and announced a partnership with, well, we've always had a partnership with Google, but the latest cars will come in with software called Google Gemini. What does that mean? It basically means that your vehicle starts to get to know you a little bit. So if you're going to pick up the kids from school every day at 3 o'clock, if you get in the car at 2:50, the car might put the child's school into the sat-nav automatically because it's a learned behaviour. It knows what you're doing. It can translate languages for you. It can, and again, it's coming back to that driver fatigue. It's trying to take some of those things away from you as a driver so that you can be purely focused on driving the vehicle. Autonomous driving is a really interesting topic as well. We're talking about that a lot. I think the software definitely exists. I'm not sure that every Australian road would be prepared for it.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, our vehicles, even from the base models up, are coming in with level 2 autonomous. And overseas in Sweden, the technology absolutely exists for there to be autonomous vehicles driving, but I think there's probably a few societal considerations that we need to discuss first before we start to see these cars on the road.
Amazing. And Owen?
Yeah, so some very good comments there, especially on the topic with ANCAP rating. Like, to get a 5-star rating, there's so many technological safety items that need to be in every car, as standard equipment to be able to get that rating. So from an Audi point of view, I'm pleased to say that we don't intend to bring a car to market unless we can achieve that 5-star ANCAP rating. So again, the acronyms list is huge. Just to give you some interesting kind of information on some of our new technological items. It's, of course, safety continues to be a major focus, but some of the new technologies in head-up displays, for example. Head-up displays have been around for quite some time, but one of our new features in the Q6 is the augmented reality head-up display. So the navigation moves not just with the with where the driver sits, but it also moves around with the road to give you directions that are in line with your point of sight. So it knows where your eyes are, and if you move like that, it'll move around with you. It's very, very intelligent, and even in terms of lane keeping assistance, it draws a little bit of a line in front of you to tell you that, be careful, you could be potentially leaving the lane. Now, the important part of these technologies is that they're not interfering with the driving experience. They're not going to take over and distract the driver. They have to complement the driving experience. And I think, Paul, you said it well, is it can't add to fatigue. It has to relieve the driver of some of the kind of the obstacles in everyday driving. Another technological highlight I particularly like in the Q6 SQ6 e-tron is, it's again the AI function. The car knows your profile. It adjusts everything when you get into the car based on you as the key user. And then, for example, it knows you haven't activated the massage function quite some time and says, hey, would you like me to activate the massage function? And you can just say, hey Audi, activate the massage function. Hey Audi, open the window a crack. Hey Audi, I feel like it's a bit too warm. Can you suggest a temperature? And it'll do all of these different things and these are just fantastic, convenient features. But most importantly, again back to the safety topic, it keeps the driver's eyes off or on the road, excuse me, and while they can use the voice features and the AI features to promote that safety.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
What I was also going to add to that one if anyone has anything to say, because something that does come up from people, and I've also been reading in articles, is we're seeing a slight, I suppose they're calling it the re-buttonization. Many cars are coming with a full touchscreen experience. For any of your vehicles and how people might have concerns about that being too techy or, whatever it may be, and the need for that physical touch button, or?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly touch on that from an Audi point of view. Yes, we do get that feedback from time to time about, obviously, a lot of our new vehicles have screen overload, people call it. But from an adjustment point of view, at least in my own personal experience, I don't find it as inconvenient. When it comes to lack of buttons and more haptic feedback, our new generation of vehicles has haptic feedback, so you do get that sensation back to let you know that you've pushed the button, as opposed to just tapping a piece of plastic. It doesn't exist for Audi. You've got a very kind of immersive experience, even in using the steering controls, which are, I guess, for want of a better word, buttonless, but they do have a haptic feedback, so the driver doesn't need to take their eyes off the road to use the feature.
Yes, nice, beautiful. Wayne, over to you. So from SG Fleet's perspective, how are we evolving to meet the needs of novated customers and enhance their experience?
Yeah, look, we're in the process of about to launch our new online portal, MySG. So again, it's all around for the novated customers to have a line of sight to every part of the journey of their novated lease. So for us, that's key, but it's also important to ensure that they have the ability to manage the lease in life as well, so adjusting the budgets according to what the projected rate of travel is. So for us, that's really important. That's the feedback. It's a changing demographic, I should say, where our customers are really wanting to be able to self-serve rather than pick up the phone or send an email. That is still an option for some customers, so that is still available. But then we're finding there's a bit of a change of demographic where people prefer to actually go online, request any changes themselves to make sure that they can have an immediate impact on the change to their lease. I guess going back to some of the tech questions around the tech side of things as well is we were talking earlier around connected cars and AI and the impacts on that. We're having a number of discussions ourselves through our innovation team with the OEMs as well, and looking at what role we can play in working with the OEMs and what data we can pull back into our fleet portal, and things around driver safety, fatigue management when it comes to AI and connected cars will be, I guess, a key feature that we can help not only novated drivers and maybe HR managers as well, but also fleet managers that are managing a corporate fleet. So there are a range of, I guess, initiatives that we're doing and working with the OEMs to actually try and look at how we can integrate that data into our own reporting.
Nice. And I suppose another one coming back for you, Wayne, we've been through a number of economic changes over the past few years, which have undoubtedly had an impact on the market. How can novated leasing help address those economic concerns customers have?
Yeah, I think again, novated leasing. Obviously, it's very much a case-by-case basis on an individual basis. It really comes down to their personal circumstances and what types of vehicles they're looking at, and the impacts it has on their take-home pay as well from an economic point of view. But again, it's also important to understand the FBT exemptions that apply on electric vehicles and also hybrid vehicles, and what falls under the luxury car tax as well. So going back to the point earlier that we made, is making sure that the educators and also the consultants that are taking the calls and talking to the customers have that awareness and that understanding as to what the benefits are on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. Nice. And to help our viewers and our customers know what's coming from each of your brands, what recent releases or upcoming models can our audience get excited about? And maybe we'll start with Audi.
Yeah, so we just got into what we call internally a PI, product improvement, or a facelift of the e-tron PI, which is our e-tron GT, which is our flagship vehicle in the whole range. It has some impressive updates, such as 350 kilowatt charging. The 0 to 100 time, I think, would put a Formula One car to shame. And so it's an incredibly impressive vehicle, and so we would anyone who's interested in the e-tron GT should speak to their local Audi dealer and arrange a test drive. They're just arriving into Australia now, so that will be available in the market quite soon. Again, the Q6 is the latest Audi technology, and that's based on what we call a PPE platform. So we share that platform with Porsche, and it's used it's used for the Q6 in particular, and it's an all new platform. So it's from the ground up for this model. So I'm very pleased to discuss the technology available in the car, and it really is at the very pinnacle of premium mobility. And so it's a fantastic vehicle, and I think in terms of safety features, we'd be here all day if we go through the safety features or the technology items. But it's everything. The standard equipment list is expansive. And so yeah, it's a fantastic prospect, something we're very excited to have in the market now in Australia.
Amazing. And we'll send something out at the end too, where everyone can put their name down on a list, pre-order, especially for that Q6 that'll be coming out in July. So Fulvio, we've seen the news of the release of the new ASX coming. What more can you say about this? And obviously you touched on a couple of the other models, but anything else that we can look forward to?
Yeah, look, it's actually quite an exciting time for Mitsubishi. We're expanding our model variants. So from a novated perspective, we have the GLS and GSR novated variants. We'll have the entry model variants that we're releasing toward the back end of next year. But really imminent is the new generation Outlander, which comes into market from July. And as you touched on, the all-new ASX, which is an Alliance platform vehicle, really well known to the Australian marketplace. Traditionally, I think it probably peaked, if I'm not mistaken, as Australia's #1 selling SUV, and it's gone through different cycles. So I think Australia's looking forward to that new platform. And then moving into next year, we'll have the introduction of a BEV, which is new to our lineup, that comes via a joint venture that we'll be putting in place, or rather our parent company has signed a MOU with Foxconn to exclusively develop a brand new BEV for the Australian and New Zealand market. So we've got a lot coming through the pipeline. There's a couple of additional models there I'm not able to speak to, but if you think about our current lineup, it really looks exciting between now and 2030. We've got a lot in store for the Australian market.
Beautiful. And you mentioned the Outlander with extended range. What can we expect in terms of that range being?
So from a range perspective, you can expect up to 100 kilometres on pure EV. You can expect a lot more power to be introduced as a result of that. So we're looking at circa 220 kilowatts in total. Certainly won't profess to be taking on the e-tron in terms of 0 to 100, but there's a lot to look forward to. So more power, more comfort, more luxury as we look to differentiate that as a mid SUV.
Amazing. And Paul, what exciting things can you share about the EX90 and the EX30?
Yeah, look, I mean, the EX90 is obviously the most exciting story for Volvo for 2025. There's a fair bit going on. We've got XC90, a refresh or a reskin of that launching right now as well. So we will run the XC90 alongside the EX90. The EX90 will take on the e-tron for a 0 to 100. The EX90 is our first 7-seater pure electric vehicle. And it's the first deliveries are taking place right now. But we will, understanding that, all these conversations we're having about people's requirements in terms of vehicles, we'll run the XC90, which is a plug-in hybrid and a mild hybrid, alongside the EX90, at least for the next couple of years. EX30 has been in market for about a year now. Also, mine's neck snapping from 0 to 100, beautiful little car. We've got a EX30 cross country coming in Q3 of this year, which is a slightly lifted version with a few more bits and pieces on it. And then towards the back end of the year, we've got ES90, hopefully this year, which is a sedan. XC60, which is our mid-sized SUV, that'll get a reskin as well during mid-Q3. So there's quite a bit going on for Volvo this year, which is exciting. But at the moment, we're in run-out mode for our current models as we anticipate the launch of the new ones. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. Great lineup. I suppose that gets us to the end of our planned questions, at least. We've got some great ones coming through from our audience. So I'll have a quick look here and see what is first. So someone has asked, EVs typically don't come with spare tyres. What has consumer feedback been like at this point, if anyone wants to dive in?
It's a good question. It's Audi EVs don't include a spare tyre. There is a repair kit for emergencies, of course, our vehicles come with roadside assistance as standard. So in the case that there's an issue with a puncture, our vehicles come with 5 years roadside assistance. So that's on every Audi vehicle. And I guess from a spare tyre point of view, it's not something that I think that's on the radar for us to implement, but it's obviously definitely we have heard that before as a concern.
Yeah. And where they don't usually get a spare tyre, it's the tyre repair kit.
Correct.
I think you've got the run flat technology as well in the tyres as well in some cases.
Yes.
that can get you to hopefully the closest destination.
Next one is, what is being done to ensure batteries are being manufactured in an environmentally friendly manner? If anyone wants to take the lead. Maybe Paul?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a really big focus for us. For Volvo, ensuring that that we are manufacturing vehicles in an ethical way is critically important. It's one of our main pillars as a brand. So for us, it's all blockchain. We trace where all of the materials come from, where all of the and also in terms of the factories and the staff and the conditions in which they work, everything is monitored. And if you've got further questions about that, jump onto the Volvo Car Global website or the Volvo Car Australia website, and you can read through in great detail the steps that we've put in place to ensure that the batteries are prepared in an ethical way. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
From an Audi point of view, I can confirm for sure that all of our vehicles are carbon neutral in production. All of our e-tron vehicles are 100% carbon neutral. So again, a similar situation there with the sustainable production technologies, and to ensure that, because obviously a lot of EV consumers are concerned about obviously their footprint and so they're making on the environment. So that's something that's considered in the production of every Audi vehicle. And so it's quite a good statement to be able to say that for any Audi e-tron vehicle you purchase, you can safely take that confirmation that it is done completely carbon neutral.
Nice. We've got one here. So how are you working with the energy companies to improve charging in the remote parts of Australia? Is there anyone that is actively, working with the organisations to help that come to be? I mean, it's obviously a two-way street, I suppose. Your vehicles require it, so...
Yeah. Again, just going back to my earlier point on ChargeFox, so Audi partners with ChargeFox, and so every Audi vehicle sold today includes at least 1 year of complimentary charging. So ChargeFox is, I believe, one of the largest charging networks in the country. And so in terms of rural Australia, there's plenty of ChargeFox stations dotted all over the country, not just in the cities, but even in all over the country. So even in sometimes you see something like a shopping centre car park, there's a 22 kilowatt charger. There could be 5 of them that are run under the ChargeFox network.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice. This one perhaps Fulvio and a little bit of Wayne. So with the change of FBT exemption of FEV vehicles, how do you think this is going to affect the transition and uptake of greener vehicles?
To Wayne's point, we actually saw exceptional take-up of plug-in hybrid last year. There's no doubt about that. And as the FBT rebates come off, inevitably we've seen a decrease. But what we have seen is a very heightened level of lead generation across plug-in hybrids. So I think what the industry did really well is, whether it was our product or industry-wide, it created awareness. And I think, if I'm listening to my colleagues, there's a lot of confusion out there. All of the technologies are fantastic in terms of getting us toward that journey toward net zero. But today alone, we've heard about hybrid. We've heard about we're hearing about hybrids, fuel cells, EVs, PHEVs. It can get really confusing, and I think what the FBT rebate did do is create a level of awareness, not only across the industry but across salespeople within dealerships, your consultants, to actually have more informed conversations and create a level of awareness. And that's got to be good for the journey that we're actually taking. So we've continued to see momentum. It's obviously dropped because the FBT rebate has created stimulus, but we are getting a lot more people now asking for that vehicle. And I think it goes back to what I said originally. It is a natural stepping stone for a driver that might be apprehensive from moving straight from ICE to EV, particularly when you think about pure tool of trades that may have maybe CBD located and don't own the buildings, don't have the charging infrastructure. You have an employee charging a vehicle, for example, that is 100% fully charged by 11 a.m. but stays in that bay until 4 p.m. So there are still a number of challenges that need to be addressed. But overall, the momentum and the education's been great, and we hope to capitalise on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wayne, do you think to SG Fleet's perspective, we're mirroring what Mitsubishi is seeing in the FEV?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think it's also helped by the fact that there are a number of new options coming to market, even in the plug-in hybrid electric, since the exemptions were removed. But as you say, it has increased more awareness on that powertrain. But we are certainly finding in low emission vehicles in general, the take-up in novated leasing I mentioned earlier was 60% of our book. So both hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles are very, very strong in the novated order book. And we're finding hybrid vehicles in the corporate tool of trade book are probably a lot stronger in the corporate tool of trade on hybrid vehicles as well. But certainly with the new entrants and the new options that are available in the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and the range that they can provide as well, it still can be a very attractive option.
Nice, beautiful. And the next question I have here is battery wear life. Has there been any evidence that slow charging is less or more damaging than fast charging? Has anyone seen any trends?
I can't really comment specifically on how fast a car is charged having an impact on battery life, but one thing which I can comment on is that every Audi vehicle comes with an 8-year battery warranty. So if there are concerns that consumers have on the life of the battery, the warranty on the battery itself lasts for 8 years. And so if the battery doesn't achieve what it's intended to do any time across that 8 years, then that the customer has that peace of mind that if there's any variation to the life or the life cycle of the battery, or how long it takes to charge or how long it takes to deplete, then they have that peace of mind available.
Yeah, beautiful. And I suspect similar from...
Yeah, you should be in sales, Owen.
Guess so.
Yeah, look, I mean, Volvo battery is the same, 8-year warranty on the battery. Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, I don't see any sort of story between slow charging and fast charging. We do recommend, and we set in the vehicle a limit, and we would recommend that the vehicle doesn't get charged above 90%, which helps with the longevity of the battery. But even with the batteries, I mean, the way that they're designed these days, if there's any malfunction in the battery, you can literally just put your hand in. Well, don't put your hand in. You'd have to have a technician to do it. But the cell can be lifted out and replaced with another cell. So in terms of batteries aging, it's a really good question because, I mean, we haven't had the electric vehicles for 8 years yet. So, you know, and in the next 3 to 4 years, especially around residual values and looking at the batteries and the battery life maintenance, it's a good question. But to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't make any difference whether you're fast charging or slow charging.
Yeah.
Within SG Fleet, we've also got battery testing equipment as well. So any vehicles that come back to our depots, we can actually test the batteries, and it gives us a good picture on the health of the battery, and that obviously has an impact as well. And I know some manufacturers are looking at providing battery testing on vehicles that are coming back. And providing further warranties on the battery where they're at a certain level. So it's interesting on what's occurring when it comes to the battery testing as well.
Beautiful. Owen, I've got a question directed at you. What is the outlook for Audi A4 and will the Q3 ever come in PHEV variant?
That's a really good question. So the Audi A4 is currently discontinued. So the generation that you would have all seen on the roads recently has been replaced by the A5 sedan. So the A5 sedan is now available in the market. We will have a very exciting announcement coming quite shortly on the plug-in hybrid variant of that car. And so that fits that what we call a segment. So the A5 sits in that A4 segment now, and that's the vehicle in that replaces the A4 officially. So that's quite an exciting vehicle just launched in market. So the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle variant of that car will be available very, very soon in Q3 of this year.
Nice.
So we hope to have quite an exciting announcement on that in terms of vehicle pricing very, very soon. In terms of the Q3 plug-in hybrid, our intention is to bring Q3 plug-in hybrid to Australia in the next generation, which is not too far away, but it's a work in progress globally to get that vehicle brought to Australia, but it's looking quite good.
Yeah, nice, beautiful. And one here, I suppose, for everyone, is anyone here working, or anyone's organisations here working with the government to encourage and ensure better charging infrastructure? I know we touched a little bit on infrastructure before, but what are, I suppose, each of us doing to encourage that space? If anyone wants to dive in.
I think from SG Fleet's perspective, we've got a number of people within our organisation from our product and innovation team that are lobbying government in regards to charging infrastructure as well. We have a large, in our corporate side of the business, a large corporate presence, our large government customer presence within our corporate tool of trade fleet side of things. So we are actively engaged with state governments, with federal government in regards to managing their fleet, but also when it comes to low emission vehicles and charging infrastructure. So we have those direct relationships as well. But we are certainly involved in lobbying and on various panels when it comes to transition towards lower emission vehicles.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Similarly, from a Mitsubishi perspective, our executive team, led by Sean Westcott, has had similar conversations at a state and federal level. We continue to lobby, but also make aware of the advantages, but also some of the shortcomings of where Australia's currently at in terms of its overall journey. So, as I say, we are a very sparse country, and having that level of fast charge network in each of the capital cities is great, but even if you're looking at some of the cities such as Adelaide, I would suggest there's an insufficient level of charging. But when you're moving into country territories, you're still confronted with, depending on the vehicle you're actually taking, needing to plan your trip. And from that perspective, I think that creates an element of anxiety. So we too are involved in lobbying as well as key education points to make sure that the policy of the day keeps up with where we're wanting to go from a journey perspective.
Nice. And I think we have time for one more question to sneak in. How do you ensure data privacy with your EV offering, if anyone's got a perspective?
I guess we have a privacy policy. It's quite airtight. So any of our data is not shared outside without a customer's permission. So we have a global privacy policy with any vehicle, not just EVs, and so we ensure that information is kept in house, and a customer has any comfort in the fact that their information is not going to be shared with third parties without their prior consent.
Yeah. No, beautiful. And I suppose that, can you believe we have zipped through an hour? So we might wrap it up there. So a huge thank you to you all for joining us today. And thank you to everyone online for joining in, asking questions, and keeping up with the conversation. So keep your eyes on your inbox over the next few days for a copy of the recording, but also all the great offers that we have from each of the manufacturers who joined us today, and any specials. And of course, if you were one of the lucky winners of our competition. So thank you so much for joining, and have a great day.